Welcome to Basic Black. Some of you are joining us on our broadcast, and others of you are joining us on our digital platforms. I'm Tanisha Sullivan, your host. Tonight, the cost of inheritance. Around the country and here in Massachusetts, Reparations has invited critical debate and discussion on the issue. The new documentary, The Cost of Inheritance, weaves together the complex and nuanced history of reparations in the United States, told through experts, community interests, and the descendants of both those enslaved and their enslavers. By presenting the personal stories in the film, viewers will see how descendants from both sides of the issue work together to seek reconciliation and repair around this incredibly complicated, divisive, and intimate subject. You can watch The Cost of Inheritance on World, GBH, and on YouTube. Joining me tonight to discuss the film, Yoruba Richin, an award-winning filmmaker and director of The Cost of Inheritance. Randy Quarterman is the fifth-generation descendant of Zeke Quarterman, who was enslaved by George Adam Keller and co-founder of the Reparations Project. Sarah Eisner is the descendant of George Adam Keller, Zeke Quarterman's enslaver, and the co-founder of the Reparations Project. And Chris Hastings, editor-in-chief and executive producer of World here at GBH. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
I am excited to have this conversation. The film is phenomenal, deeply moving, thoughtful, and, certainly inspires the viewer to think about this issue in, I think, a different way. And so, Yoruba, can you just share with us a little bit about why it was important to tell this story?
Absolutely. When I got the opportunity to direct this film, and I knew it was a film about reparations, I was immediately excited and intrigued. And the initial thing that I thought about and that I had been thinking about is how far our discussions on reparations in this country and really around the world have come. I remember, growing up, in the 80s and 90s, it was a fringe issue. It was considered crazy talk to talk about reparations.
I remember telling someone, why do everyone assume reparations always have to be money?
And the fact that it has, in the last number of years, it has penetrated the mainstream in terms of conversation, the political, politicians having to address it and having to, expound on their views around it. And, of course, the personal efforts that are happening all around the country. I mean, that was one of the most amazing parts of making this film, of learning about these efforts that are happening between descendants of enslaved and enslavers, between what's happening institutionally wise, reckoning with that legacy of slavery, and of course subsequently Jim Crow and segregation. So it was really the time to make this film.
Chris, can you share why this was an attractive project for you and your team at World?
Well, I think, first of all, because Yoruba was directing it, that's, first and foremost, and the team that was working with Yoruba. Darryl Fort Williams, who is a mentor of mine and executive producer in the film, they all came together with this film that I thought needed to have a larger audience. For us at World, we try to share content about and from the perspective of diversity. And this conversation of reparations, which, for some people it's a hard conversation, we pride ourselves on presenting work that brings some of these hard conversations to light.
Now, I don't think it's a hard conversation. The thing is, I don't think people are actually having the conversation. I think they're just automatically saying no, and that's it. And that's the problem.
And we wanted to elevate these filmmakers with this story in our flagship series, America Frame. When you think about reparations, as Yoruba mentioned a bit ago, years ago it was thought of, shouldn't talk about that. But here we are in 2024. We're about to start an election year. And it made sense to me and others that we should center this work, center this research center the idea that, maybe we should talk about what does reparations look like. And the word reparations is a hard word for some. For me, I think of reparations as repair, right? Years of racism that exists here in the U.S., it's important to start thinking about the other side of that. Mm-hmm. What does it look like to get to the other side of racism and to start healing? And I think this film starts to sort of answer some of those questions of what it could look like. Mm-hmm. And so when it came to me, I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Wonderful.
And just to add, too, we're in a time period where there are literally efforts trying to ban this kind of history and understanding of our shared history in this country, which is crazy talk. I mean, the fact that it's happening is really outrageous. And so, again, a film like this to be able to be seen all over the country and to be able to have those conversations that some politicians are trying to ban and not have is really important.
And so, Randy and Sarah, we are going to go to a clip in a moment, but I just want to, before we go to that clip, I do want to acknowledge that the story you both allow to be told in this film is deeply compelling. It is courageous and moving in so many ways.
Let me know in the comments if you've seen this film before.
Transformative is probably a better way to describe it. And we definitely want to give our viewers an opportunity to see this clip in The Cost of Inheritance, where we learn how both you, Sarah, and Randy met and how you began to work together to reclaim the 10 acres of land that were actually given to Z. Quarterman by Samuel Keller. So I'm going to invite the viewers to take a look.
In 2019, I was speaking with my cousin Bill, who lives in the Savannah area. Bill said the Quarterman family still own this plot of 10 acres of land that George Adam Keller gave Z. Quarterman in the 1800s.
When we found out the land was given to Zeke, he came alive again to us.
Got anything on your heart right now? This is the time, hallelujah.
August 2019. Now I had an email from Sarah acknowledging who her family was and if I was a descendant of Z. Quarterman, who was enslaved by George Adam Keller. I was just taken off track a little bit.
I was definitely nervous and scared.
My question was, what are they doing here? What's going on?
I remember thinking, what have I done? What if they yell at me? If they do, they do. They have every right to be angry.
I consulted with Pat Gunn, somebody that was doing this type of work and understanding it.
And so you're standing in a sacred ground. This is a slave holding den, we believe.
She told me, hey, your ancestors is on your back. It's a special moment for you. You need to engage. It's right here. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's staggered into a corners like where a house would be right here.
See, this type of stuff intrigues me. I've always wanted to look up my bloodline and document it, and I really love what they're doing.
For me and my family, we know this as heirs property. Land that's passed down through family generations that has no will to say this person owns the land. It should have been Zeke's house. This probably was the house structure that they lived at. But the land is not in our possession. In court appointed, a lawyer became the executor of our property. See, it's like old bricks from back then. And then Sarah was like, hey, I really want to get you some help to try to clear this title.
I thought This is so obviously a case of reparations because of America's first attempt at reparations right in that area.
Wow. And that's just the beginning. Sarah, I want to start with you because
Before she continue on, I will tell you one thing. I will watch something like this. Let me know, would you?
much of the conversation and the dialogue around reparations in this country tends to be divisive, hyper-polarized, and there is a lot of fear involved in the work. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you were able to embrace that fear and actually make the first step to reach out to Randy.
Yeah, I'm happy to, and thank you so much for having me and for your kind words. So I consider myself very fortunate that my family told me the truth of our history from the time I was a little girl and would go visit Savannah. And I knew that my ancestors had been enslavers and that it wasn't okay. I wasn't taught, we suffered so much after the Civil War. I was taught this was a horrible system and we were part of it. And so there was never, to start out with, there was not any fear for me about butting up against my family. I'm very, very lucky that I had their support from day one. But of course, it took me, I did a lot of work. I took a course called Holding Whiteness Responsibly by Laura Brewer. I joined Coming to the Table, a group that brings Black and white descendants to the table to talk about healing. I thought a lot about how could I approach a descendant of someone my ancestor had enslaved if I were lucky enough to find them. And so I did really prepare myself in terms of what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, what should I offer, rather than just saying, hey, here's who I am, want to talk, you know. So I did prepare a lot, and still it was scary. I mean, this work is, you know, moving through the shame of our past as a country and as a family is painful, and it's scary to be vulnerable and make connections with people, especially people whose family you're connected to through decades and generations of trauma. But I really reminded myself, like, I might be afraid, but I'm not really in danger in any way, in the same way that Black people in America have been in danger for so long. And if I can't kind of figure out a way to work through my fear about just talking to someone, then, oh my gosh, we've got a really big problem. So my choice to move through that problem, because it was a small personal fear, is something that I hope a lot more white people can do. And I will add that it resulted in only incredible relationships. And I think the only way we can heal and have racial repair, in addition to it coming from the top down from the federal government, is to heal on a personal level. And the only way to do that is to create relationships.
Relationships. And so, Randy, the film really does talk about how you initially experienced Sarah's outreach, and at the end of the film, when you and Sarah are in a classroom and you're reflecting on, both of you reflecting on how you feel or what your experience has been. Your story's similar but a little different in terms of how you've experienced this process. You start with fear, and toward the end of the film, you talk about how heavy this has been, how tiring this has been. Can you share a little bit from your perspective about this experience?
Sure. For me, growing up, and of course, a lot of Blacks understand in their household, you don't ask certain questions. Certain trauma of history is not spoken of, like how Sarah was having that history lesson going on and on. We don't have that. So the thing was going through heirs property and understanding that we did have this land, and I did understand that the Keller did own part of our family, but it never was asked of why, what, how did it become in. Those questions was never there. So to understand that we lost an acre of land by eminent domain, and then the system, Georgia Department of Transportation, saying, hey, you know, good luck with getting clear your title. In verbatim, good luck. To say that we already lost. So for her to come around, Sarah to come around and open this door for me to actually engage all this, right? But not only by property, by family history. Yeah, I might look at reparations, even for me, like, that'll never happen. That's what I thought as a black man. That ain't gonna never happen. But you never know till you're in that shoe and things are happening with you that you start working towards that and understanding people like Yoruba, Chris Hastings, you know, Mother Moore. You start understanding how in depth this is and what responsibility you have as a black person to go to fight for reparations, which we are owed, right? So in the end, when I'm talking about tiresome, it's more of understanding what Zeke went through. And to say that he was an enslaved man, not a man, an enslaved man that endured being property, to carry that weight is a lot.
What difference would it have made, do you think, if Zeke Quarterman's house had actually become the home for the Quarterman family?
That's a good question, but at the same time, it would have instilled pride in us, but at the same time, knowing that he was enslaved in this country, how can that balance that, right? It's not like he came from Africa and immigrated here and searched for a better world. No, he was basically transported and stolen from his own land to come here to serve another purpose. So that right there, how can we build on that if that's never addressed?
And then the film, Yoruba, one of the key themes here is about land and the fight for land. Whether we're talking about the Quarterman family's fight to reclaim land that was owed to them, or we're talking about black farmers. And land that was, in many respects, taken away from black farmers, denied to black farmers. Can you talk a little bit about the power of land in the context of this reparations dialogue?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like African Americans, because of the history, the ideas that we're disconnected from land, that we, are only in urban centers, and we know that's not true because so many of us have family that are from the South that own land still even today, as we see with Randy's family. But we don't hear those stories, I guess is what I'm saying. And to understand that we have a history of farming, that there were, as our the black farmer tells us in the film, we had high numbers of farming, and for many reasons, for dispossession, for great migration, of leaving terrorism in the South. We lost that, of not being able to access the loans and land. This is what the promise was, This is what 40 acres and a mule. It was really 40 acres. And that was in the area where Randy's family's from, Sarah's family's from. And that's how I knew. That was the first shoot that we did, the first filming we did with these guys. And learning, I did not even know the full story of Sherman and the black farmers asking for 40, when they said, what do you want? And they said 40 acres, we want land. So that's, that's the make good the promise, that was the promise. So that was, of course, a theme. And I just want to say quickly, this idea too of that we say, oh, that will never happen, and we do that all the time. But I do think, we have to look at things that have happened in this country that we thought would never happen. A black president we thought would never happen, marriage equality. These are some of the things I thought would never happen, and they've happened in my lifetime. So I think, we thought reparations would never happen, would never go this far. And we see how far it's gone. We have a long way to go, of course, on a federal level, but things happen that we think will never happen. And, I'm hopeful that that will be the case with reparations.
I think truly the film also does explore kind of just how long this movement has been building and how it has evolved over time. And I really appreciate the point of acknowledging what has been accomplished and thinking about the fight that the black farmers have been in and what they've been able to accomplish. And so I wonder in this moment, how you, Sarah, believe this movement can continue to move forward, especially in this political context.
Yeah, I am certainly not. If I could tell you how I think that the federal effort should move forward, I'd be definitely out there in politics. But I think what I've seen happen and how I see it moving forward is, locally, you're seeing lots of different states and cities and towns and universities like Georgetown in the film not wait and go ahead and study reparations, uncover the harm that was done locally, which is the first step, and which is what, as you mentioned, nationally we're trying to do the opposite of that. And that's what's so infuriating. You have, uncover the history, make connections, work toward repair, and then take action. The action, hopefully, with lots of different places, California, New York, the action will eventually hopefully happen, but at least these places are uncovering history, making connections and doing the work toward repair. And that's what we hope we're doing with the Reparations Project on an interpersonal level. And we also see over the past 5 years the white support nationwide for reparations increasing year to year. And we hope we're part of continuing that increase, not just the work that Randy and I do, but a lot of the efforts like Lottie and Brianna in the film, like lots of different interpersonal efforts that are going on across the country that I know they couldn't fit into 55 minutes. Together, I think we're creating relationships and watching before our eyes. I'm watching white people I know, in hearing these personal stories, change their mind, about whether reparations are a real thing that can happen.
Thank you. And I do want to go to another clip. In this clip from The Cost of Inheritance, we learn about the early beginnings of reparations and Callie House, a leader in the reparations movement. Take a look.
Reparations has been here and have been worked on for generations. From the very beginning, people were knocking on the door saying, we are owed for our labor.
Callie House, she was born a slave. She went out all around in the community telling black people that they ought to ask the government to get some money because they were poor and they were desperate by 1900. She had 300,000 dues-paying members. It was the largest organization of black folk that had existed. Pretty soon her activities came to the attention of the government and they convicted her of fraud. The federal charge was that at a time when you should have known that the federal government would never give Negroes anything, why were you telling Negroes they should organize to try to get something? They sent her to prison to serve a 1-year term. She got out of prison. She went back to Nashville to this shotgun house. She got uterine cancer and she died. You can draw a direct line from Callie House to the reparations movement today.
Randy, so what we know about the reparations movement is that it has, up until this point, really focused on moving the federal government, moving state governments to take action. One of the things that your story really does highlight is the power of personal reparations, and the importance of each individual taking action. Can you share a little bit more about the work again, that you and Sarah have been doing together through the Reparations Project?
Yeah, sure. When we first talked about the land, I thought of what would we do for the land because of it's nothing there. Nobody's living on our property right now. So we talked about black education was important to us. Land redress was important to us. And then we talked about black art. But as far as black education goes, we end up getting donors from white folks that believed in this work. And we would provide scholarships for students, the black students. So far now we have a little bit over 20. Those students are fighting for social justice. For me, just watching them articulate what they're doing is so inspiring that this work, without working with Sarah, to show that, from white folks' perspective, don't fear it, embrace it. From a black folks' perspective, hey, I'm not coming in this angry like, yeah, you enslaved my family. Let's see how we could work together and build something better so our nation could understand this could be a bigger thing if it works.
Thank you for that. Again, the film is deeply compelling and certainly speaks to the work of Chris and his team at World and the power of storytelling, Yoruba, from your team, but most importantly, the courage that it takes for individuals to be willing to sit together, to work through some tough conversations and some tough history. So thank you. Thank you all. That's the end of our broadcast and the end of our show.
Once again, if I'm allowed to post the video that they're talking about, the movie, then I would definitely post it. But let's talk about this whole reparations thing. First off, this is what I tell people when we have the conversation of reparations. I think reparations will be paid, but this is America, and there's always some type of messed up situation that's going to happen, which means it's going to be something like they're going to create a new currency, and right before they create the new currency and the dollar is going right into the toilet, that's when they're going to be like, okay, well, let's go ahead on and pay reparations. That way now it can never be brought up again. We paid it, we done, booyah. But I always tell people, why do reparations have to be money? It could be land. It could be 100 years of not paying taxes. Being tax free. It could be education. Teaching about financial freedom. It don't necessarily have to be money. But tell me your thoughts about this video as well as what I'm asking in the comments. And be sure to like, share, watch more videos, and subscribe to the channel.